Hello, and welcome back to Crit and Crit. I'm Sint,
I'm Axion.
and we are continuing our read-through of Harry Potter and the Order of the Phoenix and our playthrough of Final Fantasy V. I believe today's topic was your suggestion, Axion.
Yep. So today I wanted to talk about a particular part of this story that, while they have been present in prior books, are more involved in this particular story than they have been in prior events. Oh, that's a dirty move! I didn't know they could do that, sorry. So, in this episode, I would like to talk about the centaurs. The centaurs are first mentioned in the first book, I believe?
Yep.
And we only meet a couple of them. The main one we get to meet is Firenze, who is kind of the primary centaur that we meet throughout the stories overall. We later meet a couple of others, most notably one named Bane.
We also met, Bane and Ronan were also in the first one. There was the three of them.
Yeah, I couldn't remember the other one. I had forgotten about Ronan. Awesome. Kayla's done with Summoner. What do I want you to be next? Yeah, you could finish up Blue Mage. Which means I can switch Lena. No, she's already time magic. Okay. Anyway, we are aware that there are other centaurs, but they are given very little attention. Most of them aren't named, and well, crap. And of course it misses.
Good job.
Most of them aren't named and are, for the most part, not important to the story. Centaurs, for the first time in a few books, are actually relevant to the plot in this book, where we are once again introduced to Firenze as he replaces Trelawney as the teacher for the divination classes when Trelawney is removed by Umbridge.
Which is itself an interesting situation because, well, everybody seems united against Umbridge in this for one of the first times that they do so publicly. Because while Trelawney is not a popular teacher, nobody wants to give Umbridge this victory because she's such an awful person.
At the same time, while people are generally united against her in this, they do seem to not be incredibly fond of the choice of Dumbledore to replace her with Firenze. And there is a level of anti-centaur sentiment among some of the students. And possibly among some of the teachers, though it's not really pursued, other than the very obvious dislike of Umbridge towards anything non-human. And she makes no bones about this. Furthermore, we get to see a little bit more of centaur society in this particular book. The centaurs are very insular as a culture. They do not want to have anything to do with wizards, and they resent that Firenze is willing to work with them. Furthermore, they resent this to such an extreme level that he is essentially excised from the community due to accepting Dumbledore's offer to teach for the students. I cannot pretend to speak for Rowling in any shape, form, or fashion, but one could make an argument that there are some similarities between the behavior of the centaurs and the behaviors and practices of certain native groups, especially in the United States. Again, I cannot say in one way or another if this was intentional, but there are some similarities, and that's one of the things I wanted to point out. One seems to be that, for whatever their reasons are, the centaur culture is closed to the influence of outside parties. They are not interested in, and for good reason, with wizards participating in or taking advantage of their knowledge, their practices, and their particular beliefs. They do not appreciate wizards getting involved in things in their territory, and they have an expectation, as is shown in some of the communications that are had with the centaurs in this book, that wizards do not respect the boundaries that have been set between what is centaur land and what is wizard territory around the castle of Hogwarts. And from the way some of the centaurs, especially Bane, talk about it, this is something that has been going on for years. That the wizards have been going into the forests and meddling in centaur affairs for quite some time, and the centaurs are essentially tired. Oh, come on, game. The centaurs are tired of the wizards not respecting the boundaries that have been set. This is very similar to how a lot of interactions between native communities in the United States have happened over the past several, well, we'll just say centuries since the beginning of the country. This has been a problem that we have been very, very poor to deal with. American authorities have treated the native peoples of the North American continent terribly, pretty much since the colonies first showed up on North America's shores. And until fairly recently, all things considered, there has been little respect for treating the practices and beliefs of native communities with the respect they deserve. And a lot of issue with appropriation and misuse of the practices and especially the clothing and appearances of native cultures. I mean, let's just be blunt here. Everyone is familiar with quote-unquote Indian costumes, and there's several, like, sports mascots named after native cultures of various types, so on and so forth. And only really within the past 20 years has any actual serious effort been made to try to treat these cultures with a modicum of proper respect, and to cease misusing their names, their designs, their clothing, their behaviors, their practices, and so forth as costumes. So I've talked for a bit about this. What, if any, is your experience in this regard?
Well, with background as both an English and a social studies teacher, mistreatment is kind of an understatement in many regards. As it goes in the story, we can basically see that they're not fully viewed as people, as mentioned. Even though they exhibit full sapience. Not to be confused with sentience, which is just, the capability of, able to feel pain.
Yep.
Sapience
Sophie is sentient. Sophie is sentient. We are sapient.
Yes. Anyway, so it's not just like, care of magical creatures here, let's go learn how to feed a flobberworm and pet the hippogriff without getting mauled. This is, let us discuss philosophy level of intelligence we're dealing with. So obviously, they're not animals. They have a fully functioning society from what little we have been able to see of that. They have their own very clearly communicated values, which the Wizarding world does not give two red cents about. And they are mostly viewed as, in the most positive light, a means to an end. Fredse is far-sighted enough to be willing to work with Dumbledore because, Voldemort will kill frickin' everybody, if not stopped. And yes, he is willing to he is willing to, quote, betray the pack to help humans put a stop to that. On the other hand, even a child knows that there's not going to be much repercussion from the Wizarding authorities if they weaponize them. As seen when Hermione basically tricks Umbridge into walking out there and using the centaurs as self-defense to escape from her, nearly getting them killed in the process because she completely forgets to take into account the fact that, you know, we're not your weapons, honey, and if you're old enough to think like that, you don't get the protection of a child.
Yep.
You can't just treat us like your toys and your weapons for your own amusement.
And the centaurs basically straight up said, we have granted Hagrid an exception to some of our rules, not all of them, some of them, because he has earned that respect from the way he has been respectful of us.
And to note, Hagrid is very quickly running out of that exception thanks to Grop, which is mentioned when Firenze is brought in to replace Trelawney earlier in the story of, you need to tell Hagrid that it's not working. So, even the one school affiliate that they're willing to give that grace to is treading very, very thinly on their patience because the trust has been abused. And there's only so much you can allow your trust to be abused, especially when it comes to something dangerous on our territory could very easily kill us at a moment's notice.
And the fact that Hagrid understands what Firenze is trying to tell him and still refuses to, you know, take that into account, at least to me, maybe I'm reading the wrong thing into this, but it seems to show to me that he doesn't have quite the respect for the centaurs, or at least for Firenze, that he has earned from their community. Or, at the very least, he is more interested in maintaining his own project with Grop than he is with respecting the wishes and desires of the people who have graciously granted him this land to work on and the ability to spend time in their community. Oh.
They look friendly.
They are not friendly, and I meant to have Blue Magic Learning on, and I forgot to do it. Oh well, I'm sure I can get the spell I wanted from them some other time. Anyway, Firenze. Okay, that doesn't work. Oh, this is gonna hurt. Firenze chooses to accept Dumbledore's offer becomes a teacher, and is excised from the community. At this point... No, go ahead.
I was just going to say, and there's also kind of some reflection of this in just the different styles of teaching between Trelawney and Firenze's divination. Trelawney is very airy-fairy, and look into crystal ball and see your death in the tea leaves, and Friends is more, no, we're just gonna look at the stars and see very long-reaching patterns. It's much more nature-oriented, which does, again, tend to lead into some stereotypes there, but the fact that they do that with the centaur rather than our divination teacher human might be telling. We could
Just
be
a
reading
little.
too much into it, but that's the point of our channel. Is reading way too much into things.
Yeah, this does not appear to be working. Okay, AoE spells is not a good idea for this fight.
I don't know, they seem to be doing a lot of damage to you.
So anyway,
Yes?
sorry, I've been trying to figure this boss out, and I lost my train of thought. Stop that. Right, where was I? Oh, yes. So, this is something that is probably not to be unexpected given the circumstances. You have a practice that is part of a closed community that is not something that has been approved by the members of that community to be shared with outsiders and strangers, and someone chooses to do so. And as part of that community, that is their right. That is their choice to make. And if someone takes that trust and abuses it, it's perfectly within the rights of that community to tell that person that this was an inappropriate use of their culture and to, well, excise them from it, more or less. I'm not sure I would make the same decision in that position, but I'm not part of that community. I don't get to make those decisions, and I don't really have the right or am in the right place to be the person to decide what is appropriate behavior for a community like that. But that kind of that mention that you made of how the story ends with regards to the centaurs is actually kind of something that leans a bit into this. in that the story ends, at least with the involvement of the centaurs in the story ends, with Hermione and Harry being forced by Umbridge to take them to whatever is going on in the forest, and they leave, and having already been led to this place by Hagrid in the process of dealing with Grawp, they lead her straight into the same place where the centaurs basically told them to buzz off before. And they only got the pass that time because they were children and the centaurs don't hurt children, and Hagrid had limited permission to be there. And now, having abused that permission to a little bit, and, well, not just a little bit, a lot, and Umbridge, of course, having neither of those protections, they essentially leave her with the centaurs to die. We do find out later that the centaurs did not kill her, but it's made very clear that Hermione left her out there with the full expectation that the centaurs would remove her as a threat. And this, unfortunately, leans into a lot of the same kind of stereotypes as the prior stuff did with regards to native peoples, in that they are seen as barbaric and brutal and murderous, and that if you do not have their safe word of passage, you risk your life being in their territory. And while this is to some extent true of anyone passing through contested territory guarded by hostile forces, it also plays on a similar kind of mentality that is associated with native peoples, that they are these brutal, primitive, cruel, and hostile societies, and combined, it's kind of like what we discussed with last book with Rita Skeeter being a possible trans woman analog. On its own, any one of these things would be bad, but not overtly targeted maliciously. Combined, they send a very strong and very deliberate message. Let's get out of here. And this is kind of in the same boat. I don't know if this is what Rowling intended. I don't know if she was intentionally playing on a lot of these stereotypes, or if this is just an unfortunate coincidence. But with all of this information combined, there is a very distinct message that is being sent here, and once you've seen it, it's hard to unsee it. And the only question is is this an unfortunate coincidence of combining what are essentially supposed to be unpleasant traits shaded onto a character slash society that happened to have combined into something that plays on well-known stereotypes against a minority group that is already suffering extensive abuse at the hands of the current system, or if it was an intentional reference thereof. And unfortunately, I can't answer that question without being able to read Rowling's mind. But it doesn't look good. And I think that's where we'll leave that one, unless you have something further to add.
Nope, I was just about to say, I think we talked this one pretty thoroughly for now, so until next time.
Yep, we will wrap up Order of the Phoenix and finish up this part of the story. See y'all then.